In fact, if anybody else in the entire universe came up with those exact same ideas, the same things would be true. Welcome to another walk and talk video. Today we're going to discuss whether or not mathematics was invented or discovered. This is a pretty popular question that I get asked from time to time. My response would be to ask the question in turn, did Thomas Edison invent the light bulb? Or did he discover a way that you could put particular materials together that would produce light? Thomas Edison, I think, even said something like, I found 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb, which is the idea that you have to try and again, which to me suggests that if he was trying so many different things, he didn't create the light bulb. He didn't create any of those physical laws that make those things work. So when we talk about him inventing the light bulb, what we mean is that he attempted a bunch of different ideas to use natural laws and organize material in a way that would produce light. The interesting thing is, there's nothing about Thomas Edison that made this work. In fact, anybody on Earth, if they had put the same materials together at any time, and had some way of producing electrical current at any time throughout the history of the world, no matter when those materials are put together and an electric current runs through them, that stuff is going to produce light. So there really isn't anything that Thomas Edison did physically to make this happen, aside from assembling something that already would have worked. So the physics involved, the fact that those materials would have worked, pre-existed Thomas Edison. Just nobody had found it yet. So in that sense, even though we say he invented it, he discovered how to make a light bulb. And we continue to discover different ways to make light bulbs. As we get better and better at understanding how materials work, we discover other ways that they could be put together to make things happen. But there's nothing about our research that inherently engenders or creates those things to happen. All those things are pre-existing abilities of those materials. They have nothing to do with the people who figure it out. Some people might argue that an invention is something that's man-made, but anything that we've invented in the history of mankind on Earth, those same materials would have made those same things anywhere in the universe. Any other civilization out there that put those same materials together would have had the same effect. So is it really man-made, or do we just discover that that's a way that you can put those materials together to do something? So whether it was the illuminating discovery that was the light bulb, or the groundbreaking creation that was the shovel, all of those inventions are just discoveries. Every single invention, every single one of them falls into this category. Because you are simply, when you invent something, discovering a way to put things together to take advantage of a property that those materials already had. So in that sense, invention isn't different from discovery, it's a subset of it. Every invention is a discovery. Now, not every discovery is an invention, of course, so it's a proper subset of discovery, but nonetheless, it's a subset. So asking whether or not people think mathematics was invented or discovered, the question is just bad, because every single invention is a discovery. So in that sense, mathematics is entirely discovered. Even if you think it's invented, it's discovered. In fact, there's nothing different in how mathematics is understood and studied and proved than how people invent things or use them. If you start down trying to study mathematics, there's nothing that you will do that will change the truth of how any of it works. Even if you come up with an idea of a new axiomatic structure, and if you want to talk about structures, you can see my video on mathematical structures. But let's say you come up with a mathematical structure that there's no practical example of, and you're the first one who writes down those axioms of what that mathematical structure is and how it's defined. Once you know those axioms, everything that is a consequence of those axioms is already in existence. You are just not aware of those facts. And in fact, those truths that follow from those axioms are true even if you are unaware of the axioms. So before you come up with the axioms, everything that's true from that new invented set of axioms that you're going to come up with is already there. Nothing you do creates that truth. That truth is already there. It already exists. It has nothing to do with the person who comes up with the idea at all. In fact, if anybody else in the entire universe came up with those exact same ideas, the same things would be true. So it has nothing to do with that person. These are truths that you unearth as you start to find out things. So like, for example, a group, right? We know a lot of things about groups. And the group axioms, wow, I don't really know when the group axioms were first proposed, but I'll put it on screen as soon as I figure it out. But the group axioms, okay, when they were first written down, all the stuff that's true about groups was true before those axioms were written down. They're true just because they're true. That truth is eternal. No matter when you would have talked about those, the truth that follows from them was still there. Just because some random dude came up with the axioms of groups doesn't mean that there's anything inherently unique about that. Those group axioms, had they been written down anywhere else in the entire universe at any time, would have produced the exact same theorems. So it has nothing to do with the mathematician that came up with them. That mathematician's contribution is the fact that we now know about that truth and that he was able to identify what was important. And so we know which truth, which set of theorems to look at when we're trying to understand something that we see. That's the contribution of that mathematician. Just like Thomas Edison had nothing to do with making those parts actually do what they did. That's nature. Nature does that. What his contribution was to identify that property of those components and allow the world to know about it so that we could take advantage of that truth. Even after someone comes up with a new idea, you can discover new truth about that idea that someone else had. So someone writes down a set of axioms that define a structure they want to talk about, and you go and you find and prove a theorem about it. You discovered a new truth that's already associated with those axioms. You didn't make that truth happen. That was true before you discovered it. It's true after you discovered it. That's a type of discovery where you just find something out. You don't actually create the tool. So in mathematics, we have both types of discovery. The type of discovery that we call invention, which is where somebody discovers a organization that contains some truth that we're interested in. So in the case of Edison, he discovered a way to organize materials that produce light. The person who invented groups, they discovered an organization of rules that provided truths that we find useful in the world. But in neither case did these people do anything or create that truth or those actions. They pre-existed. They simply discovered how it was done. So you have that type of discovery in mathematics. And the second type of discovery is one where you simply unearth some truths that are a consequence of something that was already understood. You see this kind of discovery in nature too. I mean, when we find a new animal, that's a discovery, something that nature already made that we didn't know about yet. In mathematics, this discovery happens by proving a theorem within a structure that was already known, within a set of logical rules that somebody had already identified. So in mathematics, you get both types of discovery, invention and non-invention discoveries. But really, it's all discovery. Invention is a subset of discovery. And that's why I think this question ends up being asked so much, because both answers are correct. Yeah, it was invented. It was discovered. And in fact, even when it's being invented, it's also being discovered, because invention is discovery. So really, the question is kind of not a really great one, because it doesn't really tell us anything. But yeah, So, was mathematics invented or discovered? Absolutely. What basic hand tool invention is most useful in mathematics? Multipliers.